right?
This meeting is being recorded.
Okay, can you see this one?
Yes.
Okay, so it was good to give this presentation because I also realized how this terminology, like if I would have ever met our Holy Father Saint Theodore, the abbot of Studion monastery, and I would ask him, Father, what is the supreme ecclesiastical authority to you? Not even mentioning this Latin word magisterium. He would just look at me and he would probably don't understand what I'm talking about. And that's what exactly scholasticism is, because scholasticism, it's not a bad word. It's a word that explains difficulties that we face when we teach theology. So, because when we teach theology, we need to have sort of nice and crisp terms. And then we end up even borrowing like magisterium, which is totally foreign, but at the same time, canonization is also when Pope proclaims a person a saint. So it kind of really explains the theological struggles we have. All right, so St. Theodore, right? There is a very good book by Roman Choli, a British scholar, which is called Ordering of Holiness. Came out in 2002. And it's convincingly depicts significance of the abbot of the monastic houses, first in Sakudion and then in Studion. So Sakudion was in a suburb of Constantinople, and Studion is not far away from the Sea of Mramor Sea. So he's monastic reformer, political figure. Here we are. And just to drive a point home, I showed basically that in Jordanville, we hear his orations at every presanctified liturgy. So in Epos of St. Theodore, when you deal with monks, is very obvious. So that's why St. Theodore is relevant. At the same time, he is known as the one who invoked authority of the See of Rome, and the famous Russian philosopher Vladimir Solovyov in the 19th century claimed that in his belief that Apostle Peter lives on in his successors as supreme judge in matters of faith. He followed, among other Eastern fathers, St. Theodore of Studios. So during his lifetime, there he lived in very bumpy, choppy waters time, in a sense that he was born during already iconoclasm. His father was a high up court official, imperial official. He worked for treasury. His name was Photinos. And so he received very good education, and probably that was the reason why he didn't have any inferiority complex to standing up against like supreme top dogs of the Byzantine Empire. So the first iconoclasm doesn't really give us much food to look at St. Theodore's idea of supreme authority. Then this so-called the schism of adulterers from the word Michia, that's something that really gives us opportunity to reconstruct St. Theodore's idea of what is the supreme authority, because he had to deal with his own, at this time, Orthodox. It wasn't iconoclast hierarchy. So I'm not reading those dates. I'm just to give idea about the time. So in 795, Emperor Constantine VI, he was the son of Saint Irene. He decided to divorce his wife, Maria of Amnia. She was an Armenian, And Saint Irene, she had quite bossy personality, so she basically married him off, and he still have his sweetheart. And very unfortunately for Maria, because she didn't deserve it, so she ended up being sent to the monastery, and he married his sweetheart Theodore. Theodore happened even to be a niece of St. Theodore. That shows how St. Theodore was a real deal. He could have gain out of it. No, he didn't care about any gains. He cared about really walk the talk. Right. So St. Theodore opposed to St. Tarasius, the patriarch, and because Tarasius, he didn't want to get his hands dirty, he outsourced this to Abbot Joseph, who happened to be both economos of the great church of Hagia Sophia, and also abbot of the monastery Kafara. So Theodore and his monks, they claim that no celebrating should be taking place. That's kind of why it's near and dear. I really feel like Jordanville when I read all this stuff. So no celebrating should be taking place with Joseph, and Joseph should be excommunicated. And we follow Saint John as a forerunner in his attitude toward Herod, right? So with this in mind, Constantine tried to Greece and basically reconciled Studites. Nothing came out. But Irene, his mom, she used all this to her own gain. And initially, Constantine VI stuck his mother, because his mother, she wanted to be the emperor in male sense, right? So because she would even sign like emperor, not empress. So it's ended up bad for her son Constantine. She blinded him. One may say that she just did it kind of, nothing personal, business only. Yes, I think that was the attitude, because she didn't take his life. She didn't take his life. I mean, some of the chronicles, they even mentioned, it still remains to be checked whether it's true or it's just basically sort of clarification, kind of, that she took his aside exactly in the same chamber where he was born. But business as it may, this surgery didn't go well. It was butchered, so he died as a result of being blinded. So interestingly, St. Theodore didn't object to this kind of. He would focus on his marriage, but what St. Irene did to her son wasn't on his radars. Okay, so and understandably, he was returned from exile. And that's when the Studites received this monastery in Constantinople, which was founded by a patrician Studion. A guy's name was Studion, who founded this monastery. So and they received it there, and Saint Theodore, because he was like charismatic figure. So basically, to be a monk, you need a guide. That's why would people come to Jordanville, because they know Vladika Luke is a real deal. So that's all what matters for monks. So St. Theodore definitely attracted tons of people there. So, right. So now Emperor Nicephorus took over from Irene. He sent Irene to exile. And because Irene, she wasn't successful as a ruler. She wasn't successful as a ruler. And this Nicephorus, he took over. And at the same time, General Vardanes Turcos, he started revolt against Nicephorus. And somehow the former priest Joseph showed himself very bold. He approached this general, and he brokered a peace agreement with Nicephorus. So in order to thank him, Nicephorus rose up this question about restoring him to active priesthood and about restoring him to his position of economist of the great church. Right, and that's of course basically resurrected all those issues. And initially, the Studite, they didn't want to make any public demonstration. They started just quietly withdrawing from concelebrating. But Theodore had his brother who was at this time Archbishop of Thessaloniki, which was a big city. His name was Platon, and he visited his brother in Constantinople, and he didn't show up when it was expected to patriarchal service. So it became clear that something was going on. So a new confrontation happened now between two Nicephorus, patriarch and emperor, because patriarch after Tarasius was Nicephorus. So Fyodore's idea, so listen this, Fyodore's idea was that bishops were not in position to suspend canons. They're only in position to suspend penalties. Yes, they could adjust penalties, but they serve canons. So bishops, they are just, everyone in church, they are servants of the canons. That's kind of shift which we have now, and I think I am fine with this. But we should acknowledge this. It's sort of this different in mindset and attitude. Okay, any questions so far?
No.
All right.
Yeah, so we can only suspend penances, and he's saying this with regards to the fourth marriage in the Mohican controversy.
No. Forced marriage, that would be tetragamy. That's called tetragamy. That's forced marriage, and it happened in 10th century. But here, it's only divorce. It was the first imperial divorce. That's the whole thing. Because emperor, he divorced his wife, but what was important that he would have proper church wedding. Otherwise, his offsprings of this marriage would be branded as bastards. So they have no life, kind of, in the palace, right? If they are not offsprings of legitimate marriage, they wouldn't have any life, okay, any imperial life. Okay, so that's what was at stake there. So, and Patriarch Tarasius was already a saint at this time. So Patriarch Nicephorus, he assembled this council in 809. We don't really have any act of this council. It only was reconstructed from Theodore's letters. So, and this was Council of Adjutorers, right? Miho Synodos. And this council wanted to defend bishops' rights to basically to call the shots, to do business as they want. Okay, and Theodore, he kind of was handicapped for what he understood as orthodoxy, and we're getting there. Okay, so and as it happened, Patriarch Nicephorus, Emperor Nicephorus, he died. His son Stavricius also was wounded by Bulgarians. He only lasted for a couple of months. And now new kid on the block, Emperor Michael Rangave. And he had no stake in this situation. And look what happened, right? So Patriarch Nicephorus apologized, Joseph deposed. Okay, so does this mean that St. Theodore's basically campaign of St. Theodore's struggle was totally, how to say, upheld by the church? So what would you say so based on this outcome, that basically his demands were accepted and so on? What do you think about it?
Anyone?
Well, that's extreme. Intense.
Doesn't answer the question, though, does it?
Right.
Well, it depends
What?
how many. It depends if 5 emperors died after him or not. With this fantasy one.
I would say that I don't think that we can speak that his position was really how to say accepted 1-to-1, because there are in other cases in Byzantine history where basically kind of church would give in to demands, but later in a kind of church would still go its own course. So that's kind of what I see. I don't think that really, that despite the fact that this position was accepted, right? I don't think we can say that that's actually how we conduct business. That's the way. That's the model to follow. Maybe some people can do this, but what is also how to say striking, that when we think about earlier canons like apostolic canons, there are no notion of monks, and monks, they start only to show up in canons after the Second Council of Nicaea, after the Seventh Ecumenical Councils. So Theodore, he doesn't really mind that he is a monk. He's not part of all this in a sense. And also what is interesting, that St. Theodore, again, that's why the same as in Jordanville, he believed like that outcomes, objectives for monks and lay people are the same. So for him, monks were lay people who only lived very, very focused, very dedicated life. But actually, everyone is called to be a monk. So that's what I think very similar to what I come across in Jordanville. So, and that was his perception. Therefore, everyone's business was to defend orthodoxy. So now, with this situation during Michian crisis, he appealed to Pope Leo III, right? And he really appealed to him exactly as Vanya was mentioning, that he is the man, comparing him to Christ, that Christ saved Peter from drowning. So Leo should also step in and help the Byzantines to sort this mess. Okay, kind of, and he meant it. It wasn't just how to say salutary language. He really meant that he is special man, and we know all what popes did for the truth. Thinking of Martin, Saint Martin, the Pope of Rome, who was brutally kidnapped by the Byzantine Exarch of Ravenna, taken to Constantinople, tortured in Constantinople, then sent away, dying in exile. So there was a lot of ground in Rome against activity of the Byzantine administration in Italy. There was Roman militia that would stand up for Pope of Rome, wouldn't let them taken away, kind of following him and so on. So that was the setup. But at the same time, think about the following. Pope Leo was no less than the same man who crowned Charlemagne to be Western Emperor. And if you think about Charlemagne's personal lifestyle, basically Constantine VI divorce, it would be very, very chaste. It would be very chaste. He went after basically one woman, and Charlemagne, he had concubines, and it was a very different story. So kind of appealing to Pope of Rome with this, it was little bit naive. So anyway, let's move on. So and now he calls Pope to organize an ecumenical council. This is very orthodox. This is just fine, because we are consider that actually any schism, if a schism for good reason, should lead to the conciliar reflection. It should lead to have a council. That's what Russian Church Abroad was saying regarding Moscow. We need to have a common council. We really need to have sort of things out at the council. So that's very healthy. So he was leading church to this, asking Pope to lead the church to this council. But very clearly, St. Theodore would not, if Pope would come up with different treatment of the issue, St. Theodore wouldn't be able to agree this. He didn't once send on one hand, he pays all those honors to Pope. At the same time, he basically doesn't leave any room for Pope to look into the matter independently, because for him it was so outrageous, so clear that it was such how to say, abomination. It was such terrible abomination that I mean, Pope didn't have any other option as to subscribe to St. Theodore's views on this. Okay. So, okay, that was going on. Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm sorry.
You didn't
Right.
say
So, okay. Patrick Henry, who is one of the scholars of St. Theodore, he wrote his dissertation, defended his dissertation at Yale in the late 1960s, never published it. So he has the following conclusion regarding Theodore's attitude toward Rome. Theodore had discovered that appeals to Rome might be of dubious value, since the Patriarch of Old Rome was subject to many of the same sorts of constraints as his counterparts of New Rome. If the Pope would help, Theodore would be pleased, but Orthodoxy would have to be defended, whether the successor of Peter acted or not. At the same time, there are like a huge amount of St. Theodore's letters, a huge amount, really amazing. It's sort of almost like glimpse into his time. And one of his favorite scriptorial references is Galatians 1:8, and this Galatians 1:8 read, "But even if we or an angel from heaven preach any other gospel to you than what we have preached to you, let him be accursed." So that's kind of, to me, that shows that St. Theodore, the supreme authority would be combination of canons, ethical norms, and scripture. Yeah. Okay. So yeah.
Yes.
Yes, please.
we're good, Father. We're good.
Right. But I mean, if you think about also, I mentioned that St. Theodore, he didn't, at least we don't know if he, no, actually there is no information that he strongly objected. Maybe he wrote some side note about Constantine VI, but I mean, we know about this Messiah because it's tons of letters, information, but nothing about this. Then at the same time, Council of Carthage in 419 ruled presbyters, deacons, or clerics who shall think good to carry appeals in their causes across the water shall not at all be admitted to communion. So kind of he thinks the things are bad enough in Byzantium. He really calls whoever participated, and that's why I think church didn't subscribe to him, because he called all those bishops who participated in 809 council, defending their right to attribute economia. So he called all those bishops heretics. Whoever served with them were heretics. And at the same time, he reached out to Pope of Rome, basically. So kind of considering himself to be under Pope of Rome. So, and this is something that people in Russia did in 1990s with the Russian Church abroad. So being scandalized with Moscow Patriarchate, they reach out to Russian Church abroad. So I'm selling this to you because I would like to say that all those things, they're relevant if people are responsible Orthodox Christians who study their faith, that study their history. All those things, they give very important food for our thought. I think so. Yeah. Now, okay. So, and now we see that for Theodore, a council would only be a valid council if this council would produce what he believed was accurate expression of paradoxes, of tradition. So, like Council in Area, you were mentioning Arian councils, but Council of Area is, I think, very useful example. Happened in 754, claim itself to be ecumenical council, but this was an iconoclast council which anathematized St. John of Damascus, calling him Mansur because he worked in Baghdad, in the enemy territory, and so on. So this is an example. That's what St. Theodore had in mind. But also churches' attitude, churches now is going to be, no, yeah. So churches' attitude is seen later on in the same century at the 861 council, which in Canon 15 permitted temporary separation only on the matter of doctrine. Therefore, whenever people right now, they bring any moral issues to me and saying, this is outrageous and so on, kind of my safe ground. So my mantra is Canon 15. And that's why I have no problem commemorating His Holiness Patriarch Kirill and so on, because it's all at Canon 15, right? So is this clear what I'm saying?
Which Canon 15 is that again? Is that apostolic? Canon 15 or?
Sorry,
which Canon 15 are we referring to again?
Right. Of the first and second council in Constantinople of 861. Okay, yeah. So that's one of the cornerstone canons which deals with commemorations, the whole chain of commemoration in the Orthodox Church. So defending saying that if bishops, they should commemorate their patriarchs, unless patriarchs they started heresy which was already condemned, right? So, but at the same time, I think Theodore's activity somehow outside of another cornerstone canon, which is Canon 34, so which really speaks about bishops. The bishops should know who is first of them and who is who are senior, who are junior, and so on. Kind of, you see that now we are the new church, the church we know, the monastic church, is getting stronger, and the whole shape, it's reshaping of the Orthodox Church, which we are seeing. So through efforts of St. Theodore, and so now kind of the church we know, the church of the second millennium, which is monastic church, is coming strong into being. Okay, now, so it's going to be the most important slide to you. Okay, so and that I think brings me to my plane, which is like boarding in like 20 minutes or so.
Sorry, you're getting on a plane in a couple minutes?
I'm sorry?
You're getting on a plane in a few minutes?
Yeah. I'm at the airport. Yeah, I'm at the airport in Vancouver. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, Ангелскую.
Спасибо. All right. So I'm sorry if do you have any questions? We still have 3 minutes or so.
So I guess, what's your final evaluation then of what St. Theodore did during the Nicaean Schism? Is this sort of, what precedent does that set for you? Because, it sounds like the conclusion is that from Constantinople 861 is that it should only be over a doctrine. Right. In his case, he's doing it more over a moral problem. It deals with canons, but they're penitential canons. They're not dogmatic canons. So, to
me, it's really I don't on one hand I don't want sort of to be very conclusive. I don't want to, but at the same time, you tell me also what you think. I mean it. because it looks to me I'm more leaning toward saying that it was a schism in negative sense of the word. Okay, because I'm not seeing value of this in a sense of doing this, because I mean he was concerned that what emperor was doing sets a precedent for the rest of the empire. So if an emperor was able to send his wife away and take his sweetheart as a wife, why cannot I do it? So I mean, so that's what he was concerned. He was concerned about like public moral stuff and so on. But I mean, nowadays it definitely I think would be considered a schism. And I think if you look at his vita, I don't think it's in his vita that's something that's emphasized. It mentions there, but it's not something that really very bold and how to say in neon flashing letters there. But that's why I'm asking. I would like you to hear. I don't want to be conclusive, but so far my mind leaning toward what I said. You know.
Well, I guess maybe what I would say to that is just that maybe what St. Theodore was doing really wasn't so much about a moral problem as it was about an ecclesiastical problem, right? I mean, the morality of divorce and remarriage was sort of what was on hand on paper, but according to what you just said, it really had more to do with sort of Caesaro-papism, to what extent does the emperor have the ability to sort of trample on the canons? I mean, that really
right,
a doctrinal problem than a moral problem.
right.
The moral problem
Anthony
and opens a doctrinal problem.
Anthony Caldelis is the only person who had basically discussion with me after my talk. He kind of was perplexed. And he said that, I mean, supreme authority, what are you talking about? And he said, isn't this emperor and so on? So kind of the idea for Byzantinists, what is supreme authority? So kind of, I mean, that's something they didn't know what to make out of this. I'm still not giving this up, because how would you express this? But at the same time, people who study Byzantine maybe from different angles, they try to see, it must be emperor. So kind of, but from Theodore's letters, it follows that this supreme authority, yes, people, it's easy to say that Christ is supreme authority, but then how do we communicate with the Lord, right? So therefore we communicate through traditions, through so on, interpretation, and that's what Theodore tried to defend there. So this is something that is it's not a person, it's a sum of knowledge, kind of sum of you see what I mean, right? So all right, so shall we pray? And thank you for your prayers.